It had been 3 years since my family had last gone on vacation to Florida, something we did annually before the recession hit. Since we now had enough money, my parents decided, under the popular demand of my sister and I, that we go to Walt Disney World again. We are both teenagers, and our parents saw this as a bit juvenile, but decided that it would be fun anyway. I could not wait to finally go back, and neither could my sister. Being avid theme park goers as well, we are especially attracted to the creativity and the magic, as one would say, about the rides there. They never got old, and they had their fair share of nostalgia and excitement. However, there was one other reason why I wanted to go. You normally associate with Walt Disney World with words such as excitement, fun, and happiness, but these characteristications come counterbalances. After scrolling through Oh My God Facts one night, I came across a rather interesting fact. There was an abandoned water park in the WDW, apparently named River Country. I was absolutely appalled by this, since I had previously thought of a Disney to be a more idealistic and perfect way. The water park was directly on the shores of Bay Lake, being that huge stagnant body water and adjacent to the Magic Kingdom. River Country was, and still is, on the same side of the theme park, just as mentioned, but right next to the resort called Walt Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort. Surrounding the park on the resort is a large green wall with signs dotting on it. The place opened in 1976 and used water from Bay Lake most of the park's attractions. It was very rustic in the wilderness based on the design, and contained artificial rocks that resembled those used under another attraction. The Big Thunder Mountain Railroad was another dam present to keep chunks of dirt and mud from getting onto the water too, so guests do not have to worry about swimming in artificial bog created by the water from the lake. It was open for 25 years, closing its doors in 2001, and in 2005, a statement released by Disney said that the park would be closed for good. So about 11 years, River Country has been still sitting abandoned. Nature in its advanced stages of reclaiming the area, but the slides remain, and so do the artificial rocks and the small pond, now a swamp, that was used for swimming. Many urban explorers have infiltrated the area, jumping over the walls to get footage of the abandoned water park. One of the most controversial things about the park nowadays is why it is closed, which is what I was destined to find out. I wanted to get some real footage of the area before it closed as well, since from what I've heard, it was very joyous and bustling with tourists compared to its ghost town status today. I was without internet at all the time, so about 2 days before we were planning to leave, I went to the local library, which archived many old videos that people in my community had dug up in their attics and donated to the library to be a part of the small historical society. Hoping that I might find some good footage, I asked the librarian if they happened to have been carrying any videos considering family vacations. She nodded and brought me to a small section, containing any old VCR cassettes and a few DVDs here and there. After about a half an hour of searching, I finally came across a cassette with the words, "The Old-Fashioned Swimming Hole." Inscribbled in on top of it, there was a term used to describe River Country during its glory days. So I took it, and I'm almost certain that it was the footage I was looking for. I asked the librarian if I could sign it out, but she told me that the historical videos had to stay in the library. I could, however, watch the video in a small conference room behind the front desk. The librarian led me to the windowless room, and I took a seat in front of the television. She left the room and closed the door, so that the audio would not disturb any of the other library patrons. I popped the cassette into the VCR under the TV and turned the lights off so I could see the video better. I was expecting the quality to be low anyway. For about a half a minute or so, the screen was gray and there was accompanied by a loud beeping noise, typical for an old VCR cassettes. The gray soon disappeared, showing a footage of two individuals in front of the entrance to river country. They were both men, and it was either way late at night or very early in the morning, as no one else was in the park. Very few of the water park's lights were on either. The bottom left of the corner of the screen, which date November 1st, 2001, was displayed. This was significant because the water park closed for good the very next day, on November 2nd. The two men were talking about they had been denied entrance to the park in the morning, since it had reached its guest capacity limit. So they also started to stated an act and stated that these hours of the night so they could get past the park security. The two walked up to the bigger water slides of the park, which led directly to the pond, supplied by the green water of Bay Lake. Once they both got to the top of the slide, which was encircled by artificial orange rocks, one man prepared to slide down. The two laughed over what seemed to be an inside joke. And finally, the cameraman ended up pushing his friend down. I heard him scream in delight as he descended to the pond. The cameraman then proceeded back the way they came to get one of the slides, and across the bridge that transversed into a small lagoon. He ended up back up at the pond shore where the sound of a splash was heard. This is when the video starts to unsettle me a little. After waiting at the shore of the pond for about 3 minutes, nobody surfaced. The cameraman began to cry his friend's name frantically and started to run back up to get the Fort Wilderness Resort. He then stopped abruptly though at what seemed to be the kiddie area, a small shallow pond, on the hearing of the faint cough. He instantly turned around and saw a barely invisible shadow about 10 or so feet behind him. Relieved that the cameraman started to approach his friend, glad that he was okay, but again he abruptly halted. His friend's head was hanging down. He slowly inched it up. The cameraman then started to hyperventilate, as the features of the other man's face began to show. Crimson, dry blood was caked around his mouth, and even some was dripping off of his chin. He was missing all the hair of his head as well. But one of the most disturbing parts of this image was that there were patches of skin missing that has revealed parts of the man's skull and jawbone. And he was even missing his right eye. Leaving an empty socket, I became severely nauseous at the sight of this, to the point where I was swallowing my own vomit. My heart was also began to race in fear as started to settle in my body. As the last minutes of the film approached, the horrendous figure muttered something. Something that sounded like, "There is no hope under the water." With that said, the cameraman ran for his life, wheezing and panicking throughout his ordeal. I wanted to turn the television off and run myself, so I bolted the door and headed out of the room. I reached for the doorknob but paused. The television was giving off some sort of sound of an old furnace around the basement of a home. Just a softer tone. This tone, for unknown reason, kept me from moving anywhere. I was just staring blankly at the television. The cameraman was still sprinting. This did not seem to be making any progress. He ended up back up at the large pond where the slide had dumped his friend. You could hear him sobbing softly, fearing for his life. Suddenly the tape began to gradually slow down, as the man frantically looked up and from side to side. The audio volume, along with the furnace sound, went up as the video lagged. Haltingly, the cameraman turned all the way around and shrieked at the sight of his friend. The video paused on his frame, exposing the cake blood all over the other man's face. The top of the skull bone was now completely exposed. His right eye was still missing. His mouth was wide open, and coming from it, what looked to be a combination of water from Bay Lake and bile. It stayed on the screen for about 10 seconds, and then it switched to back to the black screen, displaying one single message. This epidemic begins today. Instantly, the power went out, and I was left home alone in the darkness of the conference room. I became so terrified that I could not see a thing, and I could not see the door either. I began to shake in absolute fear. River Country had been closed because of this. It was obvious that Walt Disney World had been keeping this disgusting secret a secret. I rushed to the other side of the room, disoriented. But I felt as if warm breath was actually seeping down my neck, and the smell of bile. And that, my little pretties, was the River Country film. I'm gonna say right now that this is a Disney lost, not really a lost episode or anything like that, but it's definitely a movie pasta, I guess you could say that. So, this story is, there is a little note that says that River Country is an actual abandoned theme water park. So, I mean, that is pretty interesting that it's been sitting in the dormant of Disney World for over a decade, but the lights are still on in the area and all that. I mean, there's an author's note about that, as well as there are some theories that could, come up. Like, this is actually one of the plausible ones that can be confirmed by, well, the Walt Disney World employees, that is in deadly type of amoeba that was found in the water of Bay Lake, which was used to supply many parts of the theme park water, but this amoeba can cause severe illness and death. So as a precautionary measure, Disney closed the theme park for good. So that's actually a pretty interesting that we get a little bit of backstory about, about the River Country tree, kind of like story. Like, we get a little bit of background information. It's kind of interesting. I really do like how, the protagonist wants to know why this part of the theme park was closed down. I mean, I know Abandoned Disney by Disney kind of did something similar to this, but yet again, I've not read that story in a while. So that's going to be kind of a pickle, because I haven't read this story in like a long time. If I got to be brutally honest, I haven't read that story in a while. But yeah. And I'm going to say right now, I really do like how this story is well written, as well as the good concept of it. It actually plays out well with the whole story of its own self. So I definitely have to say, I mean, the thing about the amoeba or some sort of bacteria that was in the water that caused illness and death, that actually is pretty much the logical reason as to why that part of the Disney park was closed down. I mean, that could be pretty much reason. It was a health hazard, which, I mean, I would not, that's pretty much a very good and possible theory. I mean, it's pretty much possible, but yet again, I mean, I've never been to Walt Disney World myself or anything, so I can't really confirm much, but that's actually another fear. That's actually one of the theories that people have came up with when it came to that place. So, yeah. I'm gonna be brutally honest. I actually remember Creepypasta narrated this story at one point, so this was actually a very nice change that I actually got to, take a look at this story. So, yeah. I mean, this story, I remember also, Creepypasta. Well, I already said that. I do remember, Dawn of SCP also narrated this one. Oh, well, who else? Oh, yeah, Spidey Pastas narrated this one. Nico Wanderdust, Gory Parodies, Seabass, Sagan Hawks, and I also know Mr. Creepypasta also narrated this story, and it's one of the best popular Disney pastas that I've ever seen. I mean, I decided to give it a go because of that. So, that's why I'm gonna definitely say right now that this is actually pretty awesome for a Disney pasta. I mean, it's a Disneyland pasta, but it's still a good one. And I highly recommend you check this story out. If you guys want to read a good story, I recommend you definitely need to check out this story. You will not be disappointed. Now, even though the site where I found it from, had, it says by unknown, no, not unknown off, but it says unknown offer or anonymous, that it said in that, where the site I got it from. But according to Mr. Creepypasta, it says by TheBushAdministration. So I want to say thank you so much for writing this story to the author of it. It's pretty awesome. Well made in detail. You did a great job. So, with that being said, and with that being the case, I'm going to sit here and say this is just simply my own personal opinion. And if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas. And this is simply my own personal thoughts. But I can also say there are other narrators that actually went out of their way to narrate this story as well. So I definitely will consider, checking those narrations out. And I recommend you check this one out if you haven't. It's a really well-made story. It's definitely a good one out there, especially if you want to read a decent or good pasta. So, with that being the case, yeah, like I'm going to say, this story gets a 10 out of 10. That's my rating. It's an awesome story. There's definitely, I really do like a lot of the concept of what the story is about, as well as the good grammar. I do like the scariness of it. I mean, it's not too bad scary, but it's definitely a really good pasta for what it is. It's definitely one of the good Disneyland pastas that I've seen. I mean, I've seen a couple other ones, but this one is actually one of my favorites. So with that being said, what did you guys think about this creepypasta? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what we have done personally to help make this story a lot better. Feel free to leave me what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you're brand new here to this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.